Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my movie Monday reviews, where every week I'm gonna be giving you guys a review of a movie, hence the name of this series. I realize I just made myself. I realize I just made myself sound really stupid by explaining the title, but whatever. It is what it is. Um, and I'm just gonna get right into this review. Now, I've mentioned in the last movie Monday review, actually, in last week's two movie Monday review series, that um, the movies that I'm going to be reviewing are going to change within these next 12 weeks, which I'm excited about because I like I actually like this change. Pretty much, I'm in a class called Film and Society, and pretty much we watch movies in that class, and then we talk about it afterwards, and we kind of talk about what has to do with society and stuff like that. So pretty much, I will watch the movie that Wednesday in class, and then I will review it that Monday. Sometimes I might rewatch it back, but today I didn't really have the time, and I couldn't find this movie. Anywhere. So and I just and it was and mainly I didn't really have the time to really look. So um, I'm just gonna review this movie um, pretty much after without watching it first, not right afterwards. So I kind of like that I did this time just because this gave me kind of a way um, to kind of really think about what I actually thought of the movie when I walked away from it for a little while. So happy about that. So maybe this will be a new thing. Um, so pretty much too, I'll kind of say what like the theme of the movie is too, because that's kind of what we talk about in this class as well. So I'm just gonna get right into this review. This movie is called Lucas, and this movie obviously does have a tie-in of why it's actually called Lucas, and it was directed by David Seltzer, and it was produced by David Nixay and Christy Z. Or I don't know if that's how you say those names. It was written by the same person who directed it, David Seltzer, and the music was done by David Russin, and the cinematography was done by Ronaldo Billy um, Obos, and it was edited by Princella Ned, and it was produced by 20th Century Fox and distributed by the same production company. Um, and this movie came out on March 28th, 1986, and the budget that was put into this movie was $6 million. Um, and that's pretty much all like the background of it. I don't really necessarily know why this movie was made. I couldn't really find any details on that, but sometimes movies don't really need a reason to be made; they'll just get made. So, um, I'm just gonna get right into this review. I'm gonna try the best I can to stay in order with the movie, but sometimes I won't really necessarily do that because this movie kind of had like one storyline. I usually said that like if there's multiple storylines sometimes, and they all I'll talk about them all separately, and then obviously when it leads together, um, I will you know um, I will kind of go through it in order. But um, let's start off by talking about this movie. Um, the movie kicks off with showing um, a Lucas, which is an insect that's beginning to evolve um, within over the course of time, and they do it like in a montage type of way. I thought this was a nice touch to kind of kick off the movie this way because um, it really kind of set the tone of what this movie was going to be about, and that's exactly what happened. And it opens up with this little kid who likes to collect bugs, and we see him out going to try to collect these bugs. But we also kind of get the gist that he's going to be kind of like one of those nerdy, awkward kids, just because of the way he looks, and also just by the way the movie's going. and you can kind of see that he goes later on to you know the baseball field or the football field. I forget exactly which one, and um, he goes and sees all the people and the cheerleaders practicing for cheerleader because they probably had like cheerleader camp or whatever before they go back to school, and he's watching them. He also sees people playing having football camp, and you can kind of see that he's not really with everybody else, and um the woman catch him and they think they don't know who it is. They just think it's some random pervert, but when he sees us, he just ends up running away, and he runs away towards the tennis courts, and he spies on this woman playing tennis, and um, then she ends up catching him, and well, actually, that's not what happens. She ends up losing her ball, so she goes over and they introduce each other. We find out this kid's name is Lucas and this woman's name is Maggie. Um, and we find out Lucas is 14 years old, but he doesn't look like he's 14. He looks like he's about 12. But his body just doesn't doesn't mature properly, um, because that's what happens with some kids. And Maggie, we find out, is new to the neighborhood and doesn't really have a lot of friends. So um, he asks her to hand her his ball, and she kind of says bye because she knows he was watching her like a creep, and kind of that was like a signal that she wanted him to leave. And I did like when she goes back and plays tennis. Um, he had like a tape recorder in his backpack, and he played like a love romantic type of song with it, because that kind of fit the tone that you could kind of tell that he liked this girl, and um, throughout the first half of the movie, it's pretty much just them getting along with each other. Um, she ends up driving him home the same day, um, and he's trying to make himself seem all cool, thinking that he's this badass when clearly we know that he wasn't the case. And I did kind of like how she was talking about her father was dating like a 19-year-old and he was like 37, and he was trying to get her to give her a chance, because he wants her to do the same thing with him. He wants to date her, and even though they're a couple of years apart. I know 14, 2 years apart really doesn't seem that big of a difference, but you could kind of relate to it being in high school because um, being 14 versus being 16 um, is a big difference. Since 16, you can kind of drive places and you can do more mature things. 14, you're kind of limited at what you can do. So I kind of thought that kind of liked that tie in there. And um, she ends up passing his house, and we find out that he lives in this big um I wouldn't really say a mansion, but it's a pretty really big size house, and um then you know she tries and then they end up leaving, and then she comes back later on when he's mowing the lawn, and um she wants to see if he can hang out, but he says that he can't, and he says that he will meet her though at the tennis courts every day at like 3 o'clock, and she tries to get like his phone number, but we found out that his phone number is that you wouldn't be able to find his phone number. It's a that there's no caller ID for him. I don't think they had caller ID back then, but pretty much that you wouldn't. It's an unlisted phone number is what I was trying to think of, and she wants to meet his parents, but he says that his parents are superficial, um, and that kind of becomes a common theme when addressed his parents. We find out that his parents are actually that he says his parents are superficial and doesn't want to meet anybody, and Then Maggie and Lucas start to get along though in the beginning. They go they go and catch bugs together. They did this earlier scene where a bug was on Maggie, and Lucas, since he loves bugs, Maggie wasn't really afraid of it, but Lucas ends up taking it off, and that kind of starts to tie in later on in the movie. And then, but yeah, Lucas and Maggie are getting along really well. They try to play tennis together, and Lucas is like doing really bad, and they just pretty much are like the best of friends, and they end up going to a not a classical music concert where it's an orchestra with a bunch of violins and stuff like that. Um, and Pretty much what happens is yeah, and I did like the scene where he ended up popping out of the sewage system and asking the guy for like a program and stuff. I thought that was a funny scene, and lying that saying that he worked there. And I kind of like how they kind of sat back to back towards each other. And Lucas asked I don't know what Maggie, what she thought of him when they first met, and she said that she thought he was interesting, and Lucas wants to know if she still thinks he is, and she said yes. Um, and I did kind of think that was a nice touch in the movie because interesting can mean a lot of things. In this case, he meant um, that he was like he wasn't like everybody else. He was unique. Um, and then he asks if her name is short for Margaret, and then she says yes. And then um, Madison, I don't know why I keep saying Madison. Maggie, I probably have been the whole review, says that he says her name and um, said that it sounds beautiful and thinks that Maggie's beautiful, so that ties into the movie. And then he says that he wished that school wouldn't start. And I kind of liked the transition when it went to right to the starting of the school season, which I liked. So I usually do ups and downs and stuff when I review movies. This two stuff, the introduction of the Lucas and Maggie character, and kind of like how we just had them in the beginning to kind of develop their characters. That gets enough, and I also did like the transition of and obviously the relationship and stuff we'll get is all included in that same up. But I also like the transition from Lucas saying I wish the school semester wouldn't start, and then transitioning to the actual starting of the school semester. I like that. That gets enough, and easily we can see that that the school semester has just started, which is high school, and you can kind of see that Lucas really doesn't fit in with anybody else. And I did like the scene where it shows him and Maggie separated from each other, and Lucas is like struggling to get to Maggie. Um, and We meet some of his friends, whose names I'm probably gonna end up forgetting, but whatever. Um, they really didn't play as much of a role in the movie, but pretty much Lucas is kind of with the nerdy kids, and they're part of the band class and everything. And I did like the opening scene where they had like the pep rally, which I think that's what it was called in high school, and Lucas was doing everything he could to try to find Maggie, and we see this kid named Bruno who was being really rude to Lucas because when he goes to find Maggie, the coach had called up for the for people to come up for football tryouts, and he ends up running into Bruno, of course, and Bruno pretty much makes a fool out of him and completely makes fun of him, and um, then everybody says we've had our jokes, and Lucas starts to mimic everything that the coach is doing. I thought that was hilarious, and it was a nice, funny moment for him. But I did like this scene because really did a good job of showing how kind of Lucas was kind of separated from everybody. It wasn't like everybody, and Lucas is upset and runs out of the building pretty much and is all upset. And Maggie, obviously is worried about him, so she comes to see if he's alright. But Lucas tries to play it off like that was all part of the act, stuff like that. So Maggie asks him to go to the movies, and then the next scene transitions where Lucas and Maggie are at the movies, and you can clearly see that Lucas is still separated from everybody else because when Maggie comes to the theater and Lucas tries to cross the street, cars are almost like running him over, and it's actually like on purpose running him over. Like somebody will stop and go to run him over. And it was like some people he knew too. So yeah. So and earlier in the movie, he talked about how he knew you know some people on the football team, and we just thought he was acting all cool. But there's more on that in a couple of minutes, and um then yeah, so then it kind of sets the whole scene where they go at the um, where they go to the movies, and um, one of Lucas's friends and Bruno almost get into a fight with each other, and Lucas is usually too afraid um, to respond back. So it's about to lead into this bad fight. Lucas finally starts mouthing off at him, and one of the other football players, I almost say football teammates, that just would have shown my lack of sports skills right there, named Cappy Whoa. I think that's how you say that. Um, and then, you know, yeah, so pretty much I just kind of lost my focus, but pretty much Cappy sticks up for him, and you know, we find that throughout this movie that Cappy was like one of Lucas's good friends. He's like always one of the guys that ends up sticking up for Lucas anytime he gets bullied. Um, and later on in the movie, when they're all because I think Cappy didn't want Lucas and Bruno to get the crap beaten out of him afterwards, and we meet Cappy's girlfriend, um, Alice or Elise. I don't know how you say that name, but I'm just gonna say Elise because it's an S. Um, and all the crew. This is like some people on the football team, but the main cast that was there was Lucas, Maggie, Elise, and Cappy. They're all out driving in the car, and these something ends up hitting their car, and they're not necessarily sure what it is. But then we find out that it's the Lucas. And what I liked about this scene is one of the Lucas's. Lucas even tells us a little bit about the Lucas how every 17 years, um, they're only around every 17 years, um, and they have like a quick evolution and stuff like that. And one scene part of this scene I liked is when one of them got on Elise's hair or in Elise's hair. Um, Maggie pulled it off like she wasn't scared of it, so that kind of showed that Lucas was starting to rub off on Maggie, and it showed that Maggie was starting to have some type of character change, and um, then I kind of liked this because this kind of gave Lucas like his moment because he was kind of different than everybody else. He really wasn't socializing a lot with everybody else, but this was kind of like Lucas's spotlight. Him talking to everybody about what the Lucas and stuff like that. It was kind of sad that they ended up um, swiping it out of his hands and killing it. And obviously Lucas wasn't very happy about this, and I really wasn't either. And Cappy is telling Maggie that Lucas is a good kid and stuff like that. And we find out that Lucas did something for Cappy back then, and Maggie's like, "What did you do for him?" But of course, because they wanted to, this was just clearly used as a plot device, but it was a very well executed plot device. They got interrupted, so we were going to find out more about it later. No, obviously they didn't say this in the movie. I'm not saying they literally said, "Oh, this is just a plot device. Let's talk about this later." I'm just saying, like in the movie, they just wanted to like leave because they wanted to be away from these Lucases. So that's pretty much what I meant by that. Um, and then the next scene, I like the next transition where it kind of took us away a little bit from the Lucas storyline, and we find out that I think something a little bit more was going on between Cappy and Maggie, and I kind of like the way this was set up. Um, Cappy isn't. I'm assuming was taking home ec, and he gets his clothes dirty because he doesn't know how to put a blender. He didn't realize that you had to put a lid on a blender to make it. Um, and so Maggie offers to help him. You know lift help him clean his shirt with and use how to washing machine. And this kind of gave Maggie some alone time with Cappy, and um, I kind of liked this scene a lot because essentially you saw that they were going that Maggie and Cappy ended up liking each other, and essentially pretty much that's what happened. This was pretty much kind of showing that they were. And what I liked about this scene is the way they were kind of interacting with each other would be kind of ways that not just high school kids, mainly high school kids, but kind of you know um kids that like each other, and are flirting with each other, kind of would react in that type of situation. It's putting real life events into a movie, and I liked it. I thought it was really well done, and um, yeah, I just liked it. Um, and they were pretty much talking about like an example of it would be like Maggie talked about like a time where somebody threw up on her shoes while she was on an airplane, and she looked away, saying, "Why the hell did I say that?" Um, you know, Cappy. Cappy was talking about would say something stupid, and he would look through the same thing, or he was having trouble breaking the ice. He was talking about like his girlfriend, but you could kind of tell like he was saying stuff that she was probably saying about her, but obviously it was really probably him saying it about her. So I thought it was very well done. And then what happens is um this is where the scene where we find out what Cappy did for Lucas, what Lucas did for Cappy. I'm sorry, where we find out that Cappy got sick during a year of school. I think it was that he was sick. I don't remember. I don't think it was that he was injured. And we find out that you know we find out that um Lucas would bring his schoolwork to him every day, um, and um, and he didn't not because he had to, but that he you know wanted to. Um, and Lucas didn't really have a reason to because Cappy was just like Bruno. He picked on him every day. So it changed how Cappy felt about Lucas, and he wanted to stick up for him and be a friend to him at every chance he had. So I like this. He also recommended that Maggie becomes a cheerleader. So then this lead. So I got to do the up downs. The scene where we met Cappy and we had that whole situation in the car with the Lucases going at him and stuff like that. That were getting up, and this scene with Maggie and Cappy will also getting up. So what happens next is Lucas and Maggie. Um, Maggie sees Lucas sees Maggie, and we see that Maggie wants to do the cheerleading tryouts, and um, you know, and Lucas gets upset about this because he wants to hang out with Maggie, but Maggie doesn't want to. What Maggie wants to be in start getting involved in clubs and stuff like that because she's new and really doesn't know anybody. And he's upset that Lucas doesn't understand that. But Lucas doesn't want to be a part of these events. He kind of wants to be separated from everybody else. He doesn't really like cheerleaders. He doesn't like football players because they're all superficial. Um, so, um, the next day, Lucas feels bad about this, and um, he tries to apologize to her, and Maggie's not really paying attention because she's waiting for Cappy, and pretty much I feel like I missed a scene, but I'm not really gonna go into too much detail about it. It probably wasn't that important, and what happens is Cap I did like this scene because Lucas, pretty much, we knew that there was a dance going on, and Lucas wanted to go to the Cappy and um, Elise to take Lucas and Maggie to the dance, and Lucas did this without talking to Maggie about it first. So she was very upset about this because now everybody thought they were a couple and stuff like that, and yeah, Maggie and Lucas really wasn't thrilled about it, so I liked this. And then I think the next scene was essentially um, them getting ready. Oh no, then I liked the next scene. The next scene was the chorus concert, and I thought this scene was fantastic. Um, I forgot. I didn't mention this because I forgot to, and I was gonna wait, but now this is the perfect time. Um, Lena, who is one of like Lucas's friends, um, is also interested in Lucas. She wants to date Lucas. She was asking him about the dance and stuff, but Lucas um, is so interested in Maggie and stuff. She didn't want um, he he wasn't really interested. So they do this next scene at the chorus concert where each person's kind of looking at each other. Um, and I like this scene a lot. Where Rena's eyeing down Lucas, Lucas is eyeing down Maggie, Maggie's eyeing down Cappy, and um, Elise is eyeing down Cappy, but Cappy's not looking at Elise, he's looking at Maggie. And you could kind of see, because it was kind of a way to show that each person had like a life interest, not a life interest, a love interest um, in that person. They had some sort of connection in a way. And I thought that scene was just really well done. So I'm going to give that scene an up as well. I just really liked it. Um, and then it leads to the dance. I probably missed some things talking about some things within this, but I'm just going to start off by talking about the dance. Pretty much what happens is Lucas gets rents a tux because he was told because he thought he was supposed to because Alice references the fact that that he should wear a nice suit and Lucas goes and prepares for this dance and um, then we find out that they're not going to the dance, pretty much. I did mention this scene. I think this is the scene I forgot. Elise and Cappy get into a fight because Elise is jealous of Cappy and Maggie. If Cappy's spending so much time with Maggie and really talking to Maggie as a normal girlfriend would, so he pretty much makes a decision between her and Maggie, and I guess they ended up ending the relationship. I did like that this scene, the way the scene was filmed, it was kind of like filmed with the characters away from each other, just showing the setting of the house, and I thought that was really well done. Um, and then so Maggie comes out and spreads the news to Lucas, and um, then Maggie's all dressed up for the dance. To which I asked, why would she get ready to go to the dance if she knew she wasn't going? But then this is where it's nice to have other people talking about it. But then my teacher said, well, um, mate, he probably came just then and let her know, so that she had no idea before she had put that stuff on. Um, And then yeah, then pretty much what happens is um Maggie tells Lucas they don't want to go to the dance, and Cappy comes and tells him, and I kind of like how Cappy said how the movie how whoever the director probably structured this where Cappy sat right in between Lucas and Maggie, because that's kind of like what this whole movie was starting to be about, was that you know Lucas and Maggie um were how Cappy was in the middle of Lucas and Maggie's relationship and stuff like that. So I really like that a lot. And then what happens is um Cappy doesn't really feel like going to the dance because he's just way too upset, and Maggie wants to stay with him to comfort him. And then he suggests that Maggie and Lucas just go to the dance. Um, but then Lucas tries to invite um, Cappy to come along, but then Cappy's just like, and then Cappy doesn't want to be a third wheel. But me and Maggie are gonna go for pizza if you want to tag along with us. And then Lucas says, "I thought you were upset." And then Cappy's like, "Yeah, I am. Then why can you eat pizza if you're so upset?" So this makes Lucas upset, and then he leaves to go off to the dance. And I love this scene a lot. I thought this scene was really good. I especially loved the quote when Lucas said, "Why are you?" When Lucas asked why you're so upset, um, knowing that because that was like a logic hole um in that scene, and I like that it was addressed, and obviously because we knew what they were really planning. So yeah. So Lucas is all upset at the dance, and Reno and Luke comes up and tries to comfort him. And obviously, I think Lena was trying to, um, swoop in and maybe try to take Lucas off of his feet and try to get into a relationship with him, which didn't work because Lucas only cared about Maggie. And throughout this movie, they talked about how you know how Romeo and Juliet, and obviously everybody knows how that ended. So Lucas kind of starts to utilize this as an idea, and then Cappy and Maggie finally get together. They were talking outside the pizza place, and they finally kiss, and they finally get together. To which Lucas comes and watches all this go down, and he rides off on his bike all upset. Um, and then I liked the nice and what I liked about Cappy's character, and I didn't really talk about this that much, was um, he was kind of like a mutual character in this movie. He was a hero in the sense that he always stood up for Lucas, um, and you know that he wouldn't let anybody pick on Lucas, and he was trying to be do the right thing, but he was also the villain because he kept Lucas from and Maggie from being together. So he was kind of like the mutual person in this relationship. He was the person that um, that that Lucas was fighting against. So I like that a lot. So that will get an up. And I also like this scene. This scene gets an up. Um, and I like the next scene where we transition, so that also will get an up. Where it transitions into Lucas's friend saying that you know hey everyone, did you hear about Lucas? It's suicide. And it pauses because we thought Lucas committed suicide because the band teacher had committed suicide. Um, in the movie storyline wise, so they hire like a new band teacher and everything, and then we find out you know that um it wasn't that done that way. They pause and then says he's trying out for the football team. So I like that pause. It made I think the director and whoever wrote that knew that we would all thought that we Lucas would have committed suicide. So it played with your emotions a little bit. So I like that scene. I'm going to give that scene an up as well. So it kind of shows Lucas trying out for the football team, And I did like the altercation he had with the coach, where he talks to the coach and he says that you know that um well he tells the coach that he doesn't think the equipment's fitting him very well, and then the coach is like, I don't think it's the equipment that doesn't fit, it's you. So it's kind of like the coach thinking that Lucas doesn't have what it takes because he's small and not as buff as everybody else, and um, then yeah, and then Lucas tries to throw out that his father was a lawyer and says that he should be given an equal opportunity just like everybody else. So you're going to have to put up with me. So Lucas and everybody, and all the other players go into the locker room. And I did like the altercation that Lucas and Cappy had with each other, where Cappy told Lucas that he knew why he was doing this, um, because he wanted to he wanted to date Maggie. So I liked that. And then the next scene, I did like the next scene too, where Bruno was trying to mouth off at Lucas, and Lucas was talking about how finally fired back and was actually being kind of a smartass by talking about Bruno's sexuality, and depending on how big um, somebody's dick is, pretty much it shows their sexuality. So this obviously pissed off all the players. So what happens is they rub rub this stuff that athletes wear that stins all over um, Lucas's dick and lock him out of the school. I thought it was hilarious. And obviously, then Lucas gets talked to about this by the principal, and essentially, the principal doesn't want Lucas to step foot on the field, not just for his health, but he would look bad as a principal letting Lucas go out there, and if he got hurt or something like that. So he won't let him go in until he has a conference with his parents, and we knew that wasn't going to happen. Um, so that kind of tied into the movie later on. So I like that scene. I'll get it up. Um, and then Lucas, Maggie tries to get Lucas's attention, and Lucas does whatever he can to avoid her, but she ends up, because she has a car, he has a bike, she's able to catch up to him, and she goes to where he normally hangs out, and she tries to make everything right, and she tries to just tell Lucas that she, that that she just wants to be friends with him. Um, and this is when the whole thing where we talked about natural selection, which I talked about in biology one year, actually last year, and he talked about how those who look good and stuff in humans are most likely to survive and stuff like that. And Maggie, we think they're gonna finally make up and be friends, but then when Lucas tries to kiss Maggie, it doesn't go very well. So I like this scene. It was good. That gets it up. Then we get to the game, and I like this because pretty much the school, I forget the name of the school, so but their school is getting destroyed by the other team. So Luke, and I did like this because everybody's kind of struggling to work with each other. Bruno and Cappy aren't getting along. Uh, Elise and Maggie aren't getting along. And what this leads to is Lucas finally shows up and he wants to be put in the game. And he eventually, after Lucas continuously persuades him, the coach finally puts him in the game. And obviously, um, this is where the worry came for me in this movie, because I was worried they were going to go the predictable, feel good ended movie route where Lucas was going to catch the winning touchdown. I almost said goal, but that just would have showed you how much I would have known about football right there. But where he was going to catch the winning touchdown and win the game for the school, and they were just going to completely kind of ruin the movie a little bit for me. But I'm going to give what they did next an up, because this movie did it right. So pretty much Lucas has no idea what he's doing, and he takes his helmet off during the game, and he tries to enjoy it in the huddle-ups, but since everybody else is so muscular and nobody wants anything to do with him, they just kind of see him as like a cockroach. They shove him away. Eventually, he finally catches the ball, and he ends up fumbling the ball. And everybody like tackles him down to the ground and stuff like that. And he had taken his helmet off a second time, and the coach had tried to pull him out of the game prior to this. And Lucas gets kicked in the head and completely injured. So he gets taken away in an ambulance. So I love this scene a lot. I thought this scene was done very well, and it was actually kind of fun. A little bit had some comedy in it with it as well. That's another thing I'm gonna give it up to in this movie is the comedy. Um, is you know I liked the comedy that this had, like the scene where Lucas got the stuff spread all over his dick. They played up on that when Maggie tried to come over and Lucas was trying to play it off like nothing happened. It had some nice funny moments in this movie as well. But anyhow, um, Lucas is being Lucas goes to the hospital, and since nobody knows since Lucas's phone number and stuff like that and his number's unlisted, um, Lucas and Maggie, no, sorry, I messed up. Maggie, Cappy, and Rena all go to his house, and they go to the house where Maggie took him to in the beginning of the movie, and we find out that that's not Lucas's house. We find out that Lucas lives in a trailer park. Um, and um, what happens is we find out that Lucas' life isn't as great as we thought it was. We find out that he lives in a junkyard and his father's an alcoholic. I don't remember what they said happened to his mother. Um, I don't think it ever said. And Lucas actually works as a gardener at that lodge house, so that's why he was mowing the lawn earlier. So I did kind of like this because Maggie seeing this kind of changed her character a little bit again. So I like this scene a lot. Um, and Maggie finally goes and visits him in his room and tells him never to play football again. And Lucas's promises, and they two finally make up again, and they start picking up their friendship where they left off. And Lucas and Maggie talk about how they don't really hear the Locusts anymore, and they wonder if they still will still be in touch with each other um, when the Locusts return in another 17 years. And then the next day, Lucas returns to school, and all his classmates are kind of looking at him surprised, like we know something's about to come. And we see Bruno um, and Spike, who's like one of the football players there, looking at Lucas. And Lucas ignores them because we thought something was coming up there. But then Lucas looks in his jacket. Well, sorry, look, I just gave away the movie. He looks in his locker, and when he he looks surprised. And when he pulls it out, he sees a varsity leather jacket, and it has his name on it on the back. And everybody gives Lucas a slow clap, a slow standing ovation, except the coach. He still didn't like the fact that Lucas was on had this jacket, and that's how the movie ends with Lucas triumphantly um, getting this standing ovation. And that's pretty much the end of this movie. Um, and I thought this movie, and one of the symbolic things that took place in this movie was, and what the main thing that we talked about was rites of passage, was pretty much as some sort of ceremony or initiation um, of being accepted by a group of people. Um, and actually, I have to make sure I said that definition right. Let me just yeah. Um, yeah, essentially that's pretty much what it was. And we had, and there's like 3 steps to it. There's separation, initiation, and return, and it pretty much fully explained this movie. Um, that Lucas went through this rites of passage because Lucas, had was separated from everybody at high school pretty much, and I thought that was great. He was separated from everybody, and he was kind of like the outcast of the high school. But then his initiation was pretty much the football game. It was a chance for Lucas to finally, um, you know, was finally um, being in that football game kind of made him a part of the community, and obviously other things like that, like the Maggie stuff and stuff like that. But then eventually he was returned when he got the varsity leather jacket. So overall, I thought this was a great way to kind of show the rite of passage, to show what happened throughout this movie. And I kind of like that this movie didn't end predictably, where Lucas ended up getting Maggie at the end, or he ended up catching the touchdown. Even though Lucas didn't get any of that, he still won in the end. He still got accepted by everybody, and he still felt like Lucas um, grew as a character throughout this movie. I also thought Cappy's character direction was very good in this movie, and I liked it. Um, I like the storyline in this movie, and I just like this movie itself. Um, I do have to throw in a couple of downs, however, because not everything's going to be perfect sometimes. A down that Elise made no appearance after the Cappy breakup doesn't piss me off, because I kind of get why they didn't really utilize her anymore, because her storyline kind of ran out in that movie. She really didn't have much of a connection with any of the characters except maybe Maggie, and Maggie and Elise having a fight really wouldn't have constituted the story, but it just was really weird that she just vanished off the movie. And also a down because I kind of wanted to see. I kind of wish they would have ended it off too. 17 years later, seeing what Lucas's and Maggie's life was after 17 years. I thought that would have been kind of interesting right there. I really would have thought that would have been a nice direction, just because they had talked about it and they didn't really go there. So I'm gonna give that. I also will give that a down as well, but it doesn't piss me off though. Um, but then now I gotta give my letter grade for this movie. I gotta say this was a good movie. Um, I enjoyed this movie. I like the storyline. I like the premise. It makes you laugh, and I like the character development that some of these characters went through. So if I had to rate this movie, I would give this movie a B minus. I would say it's a good movie. It's not a great movie, but it's a good movie. I would give it a B minus. Um, and that's pretty much what I have to say there. I'm gonna kind of go over the box office draw, and then how other people rated this movie. This movie ended up making $8.2 million, which is actually really good considering the fact that it has its budget rated and stuff like that. So I thought that was really good. And this movie is critically acclaimed. It has a 70. I think it said 79. No, a 70% um, positive approval rating, um, which is awesome. Now, I'm going to say that a lot of these movies are critically acclaimed because in my class they're not going to show movies that did really bad in theaters. So I'm assuming. So yeah. Um, but um, everybody both but fans gave this movie the general area rated was 7 or 8, which I would say are good ratings. Um, some 6s, but there was nothing really below a 6. There was some, but there wasn't anything below a 6. Some people gave this movie a 10 out of 10. I don't even think it's I don't think it's a 10 out of 10, but people can give the movies whatever they want to give them, but I don't think it was a 10 out of 10. It's a good movie, but it's not a perfect movie. But let's go over now the cast of this movie. Chloe Haim plays Lucas Bly. And Chloe Haim, obviously, we know because he had drug addictions and stuff like that. is no longer with us. He passed away on March 10th, 2010. He passed away 5 days before my birthday. But he was in. But yeah, he was. I just want to see. But pretty much he ended up dying. He died. I just want to see how he died. He ended up dying due to a. Come on, this video was going so well. I should have probably read up on it, but I thought it would be a quick read. A quick read, I mean. But but he lost his life to drugs. Because he just couldn't. He lost his life to ammonia. I thought that was what it was, but I had to double check. But he was in other things. He was in Never Too Late on Life 101. I believe he was in he was in The Lost Boys, Silver Bullet. I'm just listing off some movies. Shooter on the Side. Dream a Little Dream. Dream Machine. Blown Away. Firstborn, that was his first movie. Busted. Shark City. New Terminal Hotel. And there's other ones, but I'm not going to name every single one. As for TV shows he was in an episode of Robot Chicken. Merman the Quest Begins. Big Wolf on Campus. For an episode. A Time to Live. And the Edson twins. So those were some of the movies that he was Chloe was in. Kerry Green really didn't go on to be in that many stuff, but she played Maggie. But she didn't really do much outside of this role. She was in The Goonies, and that's pretty much the most notable thing she's done. Really nothing else. And then Charlie Sheen played Cappy Woe. I don't know if that's how you say that, but obviously everybody knows Charlie Sheen. He was in 2.5 Men, Anger Management, Dogs Go to Heaven 2, or All Dogs Go to Heaven 2. I can't really think of anything else. But Charlie Sheen, pretty much, everybody knows who he is. I think this was his this was not his first film. This was his. He had been in a few stuff prior to this. The Boys Next Door. I'm sorry. Silence of the Hout. But other things I can come up with that he's been in is Rated X. He was in one of the Scary Movies. Actually, 2 of the Scary Movies. He was in 4 and 5. He was in 9/11 that came out last year. And other TV shows. He was in The Goldbergs. And he was in an episode of CSI. He made an appearance on The Big Bang Theory. He was in Friends. So those were kind of some stuff Charlie Sheen was in. So Charlie Sheen went on to be. He probably has gone on to become the biggest actor probably out of this. I would say. Elise was also in 2.5 Men, which is kind of funny because she was dating Charlie Sheen in this movie. Batman New Times. Summer School. She was in an episode of Robot Chicken. Sorority Wars, according to Jim. And Spin City. Then you had when Noya Ryder played Rena, who the most notable thing she's done was she's in Stranger Things. She was in Beetlejuice, which I heard is a pretty good movie. I might watch that at some point. Boys, Experimenter. I'm just kind of reading this right off. Sex and Death 101. I'm reading this right off Wikipedia. Zoolander. Friends. As like a one-off, I think. Show Me a Hero for 4 episodes. And Strangers with Kate Candy. And she was in an episode of The Simpsons. And Jeremy Piven. This was actually Jeremy Piven's first movie he did. I don't know if this is his first role he did, but this was the first. I think this was the first thing he was ever in. Let me double check that though. Yeah, this was the first thing Jeremy Piven did, and obviously everybody knows Jeremy Piven from Entourage, the Scary Movie saga, some of the Scary Movies, Edge of Tomorrow, Spy Kids. You know, Jeremy Piven, everybody should know. The Family Man, The Crew, The Goods, Lie Hard, Sell Hard, I'm Out with You, The Kingdom, stuff like that. But he was Spike in this movie. He didn't have a very big role, but he was in it. Gary M. Brown didn't really do a whole lot, but he played Mr. Fraser, who I think was the principal. Tom Hodges played Bruno. He didn't really do a whole lot, and Guy Boyd played the coach, and that's pretty much the entire cast. There was other people in this movie, but they quite frankly didn't have as big of a role as all those characters did. But pretty much that was the end of this movie. This is going to be the end of the review. So like I said before, I will re-say it. I thought this movie was good. I'll give it a B-. So that's pretty much the end of Movie Monday reviews for this week. I'll be back next week to review another movie. And the next movie I'm going to be reviewing is Children. I actually have my syllabus right here. The next movie that I'm going to be reviewing is going to be Children of Heaven. So make sure you guys tune in next week to check that out. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. Please make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell so that way every time I upload a video, you guys will get the notifications for it. Make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers YouTube channel because I'm going to be posting a lot there, a lot more now. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.